Alright y'all, back at it again. So where we left off, we were doing layout last time. This time, I guess you can see on the bench, I got a huge mail call. I'm sorry I didn't organize this, but I will talk to each one of these and I'll cut this up a little bit so it moves at a clip. But I hope you guys are enjoying this. As you can see over to the right, I'm doing some sanding work, but I don't really have anything big to report here. So I'm just going to talk stuff that I bought because I know y'all savages love that. All right, first up, I'm going to try to organize all the PE stuff that I bought. Yeah, I think it's all one. So the first piece that I wanted to talk to was, let's get some light on this. So with every build that I do, I try to do a little something new. And admittedly, I've never worked with Photoetch before. So for this, I wanted to present 3 distinct little styles on each one of the Gundams through Photoetch. And the first one, this is really cool, or actually RPG cases. So this is for a BTR, which is an armored vehicle. I believe it's Russian. But as you can see, these are what are called RPG cages. So the intent, if you guys don't know, is when an RPG hits, instead of it hitting the armor, it would in theory hit this cage and detonate outside of the armor. And also too, an important piece, this is a, let's see if it's written down, 172. So I found that the 172 stuff kind of scales pretty well with the Gundam HD stuff. So I have this Photoetch and this looks pretty daunting. I kind of like preliminary measured it out. It looks like some of these pieces right here, and or if I cut them, will fit on the EZ8's chest and skirt armor and the shoulders, you know, the bigger portions. But I'm gonna have to trim this out. This is cool. I also picked up some barbed wire. So this is actually 135 scale. They didn't make 172. But what looks neat is you cut this off and then you actually can like wrap it around your finger or pencil, and it makes really sharp, really good looking barbed wire. So I was thinking about doing this either on one of the support backpacks for the GMs, or maybe like having it on the skirt, or I don't know, I might even put it down by the feet for some kind of anti-personnel, but this is pretty rad. For the GMs, I'm going to be using, this is add-on armor for the BTRs. I actually somewhat regret buying this. I thought, and it actually does kind of fit, so you can see like this piece right here fits pretty well on the skirt. I would just have to trim that up. Some of these square sections do fit on the shoulders pretty well, but it's kind of an imperfect-ish fit. And the other piece is like it has these big holes for these crew service windows that are on this BTR. And, you know, putting it on the shoulder, I'm blocking the camera, putting it on the shoulder with like a huge hole on it, I don't know if it necessarily makes sense, but I'm going to press ahead anyways. Like, a big piece with this project is I bought all the stuff, it's all here, I just want to go. I don't want to have to sit and wait for something to come by. Just, you know, I want to make work what I got. So I still think this will be pretty rad, but I did look up on Micromark. You can actually order like whole sheets of this brass and then just cut it yourself, either with scissors or some other kind of punch tool, and then brush it up to kind of get the same effect. So kind of in retrospect, I wish I had ordered just a plain sheet versus using this one, but the RPG cage one looks pretty rad. All right, so second to last is handles. Here's another one that I also regret buying. So these are 1/35th scale handles, but they are tiny. They are so freaking small. And the other piece is making handles is not that daunting of an exercise. I watched some videos last night after work when I was just kind of chilling out, and make a couple of really simple tools. And I know Justinius and I think Tim picked up one as well, where you can just bend wire to get it to the form that you want to, and you can customize it. So I don't know if I'm going to use this. I'm going to kind of let it hang out in the background, but it might go into my used parts bin. Okay, last but not least on the PE side is this. So this came from Galactic Toys. I think this is MadWorks, but no, it doesn't say it. It's AW. But these are a bunch of tow hooks. So similar to how on the chest of the EZ8, there's those two tow hooks that are on there. I want to replicate that with, you kind of see I wrote tow hook, or maybe not, but one's going to go here. I'm going to try to put one on top of the skirt armor here, and I might find some other cool places. The one pickle this one's going to be a little bit difficult with is that it's hard to see here, but on the bottom of, and the camera's over here, the bottom of this, you bend this little plate, and then that little bend, you know, gives you a 90-degree angle, and that's what goes on the build. The one piece was, I don't know if I want to show that bend. I might actually get my scriber and dig a little trench and bury it in there, and then use some epoxy or super glue to bury it so it looks like it's flush and it's just part of the metal. So Photoetch tool wise, I bought two things. So I have, as you guys saw in my photo story the other day, these Zeron, these scissors, and actually a couple of YouTube videos I watched, these guys use the exact same ones. These are the 9180ET. There's a few different models of this. It's a little bit harder to place, but let me crack this open and I'll show you guys what it does. All right, so here are the Photoetch nippers, and you can see that these nippers have a really narrow edge, and there's actually a lot of good bite to this. So I guess the thinking is that you can actually just cut the Photoetch off of the sprue like you would a model versus trying to use a hard surface to cut it. I will do a video on Photoetch because I know many of y'all haven't used it much like myself and are probably pretty curious about how it goes. But I brought these to really trim this to kind of fit into the armor parts. Like I mentioned a moment ago, that skirt area, you know, it kind of goes down long, so I'm going to want to probably trim that just a little bit. And it seemed like these scissors were the way to go. I've seen a bunch of videos where they cut like 0.005 brass with like regular scissors. But this feels a little bit thicker, so I don't know if I could actually cut that with scissors, but anyways, I got these. They were 19 bucks. It seems like it's a pretty good investment. And then always keep these things on the tip when you're working with something that has a pointed edge. You don't want that edge to get rounded. All right, so my other Photoetch tool is the Armory by Gauntlet. I just wanted to show you guys the packaging, how it comes, and I'll crack it open here in a second. All right, so this is an instance of you pay for what you get. I thought this was metal, but it's actually all plastic, and we'll see. It's fine. I'm sure it'll work all right. So the thinking here for any of you guys who are brand new to Photoetch is that when you want to bend Photoetch, especially for like the RPG cages, you're gonna slide the piece underneath there. Let me see if I can do it with a little piece of paper. All right, so I got a little piece of paper. This probably will make a little bit more sense to show y'all. So you would put your piece, and this is assuming that it's something small like that tow hook cage I showed y'all a second ago, and it will, on camera, let's see if we can do this. Okay, so that came loose. You just slide it under here. You wouldn't do it for all three. You just have the part underneath there. And you ratchet this guy down, and then you can bend your Photoetch at an angle. The easier way to do, I should say the easier, one of the base ways to do it is they make a triangle, like a metal triangle, and you put the triangle on the table, and you put your part there, and you take a razor blade to lift it. The reason I didn't go with that is like I wanted something fixed, like I wanted to put the Photoetch part, especially on this back side, and I wanted to lock it down. Versus like with a triangle, I'd be having to maintain an angle and to float it at the same time. So I wanted to try this out. I got this on Micromark. A lot of this stuff, by the way, the two sites that I use, and I'll include links here in the description because I didn't hit it in the beginning, were eBay and Mega Hobby. So that's where I ordered all of my supplies. I'm assuming that I have all the paints and everything. To be honest, I didn't really think through it. These tools go, so this was 19 bucks, but you can find like Photoetch bending tools that are like $100. But mind you, they're made out of billet aluminum. And now that I'm handling this little cheap $17 tool, I can see the difference. But TBD as to how much Photoetch I'm gonna be working. So we are on to resin. So I picked up these from eBay. These are 172 Vietnam era equipment. So as you can see, it's just a big collection of backpacks, drums, boxes. Admittedly, I will not be using the backpacks. I don't want this thing to come out of scale, so it's still a 1/144 scale. So I've taken a look at these, and I'll pull them out here in a second. The crates and the barrels, I think will line up just fine. But looks like it comes from Czechoslovakia, blackdog.cz. Resin. Cool. All right, so I got it cracked open. You actually get this bag of stuff, and I just pulled out a couple that I thought were good examples. So I just mentioned I'm not going to be using these because it'll knock it out of scale, but there's really, really good detail on these resin bits and bobs, and who knows, I will more likely than not use them for a future build. Hell, maybe even a PG someday. And looks like we have some boxes, or maybe these are supposed to be fuel canisters, but these look cool. This, you know, this could be 1/144th. It could be a really big fuel container. I don't mind working with something like this, but I do want to keep this whole build in scale. So it looks like there's some kind of ammo boxes. So these would be cool. I haven't really figured out where I'm going to put those. Maybe on the outside of the support pack on the other GM, not this GM. This is kind of like the more agile one. But these will be cool, and who knows, maybe I'll pepper them throughout all three of the builds. All right, the last bit of resin, which I'm really excited to work with actually, are these headlights. So I was kind of disappointed. I thought there would be a lot of different options for headlights at all different scales, but as it turns out, and I didn't do a ton of searching, but on Mega Hobby they had these, on eBay they had these, but these are the headlights and taillights, German tanks, World War II, 1/135th scale. It's from Royal Model. And if you flip it over, it's just a real basic resin pour. But what's cool is that these come in a bunch of different sizes. So I think this smaller size actually pairs better with 1/144th. These larger headlights I think might be a little bit out of scale, but I'm willing to try it out. And I think I'm gonna put like 2 searchlights maybe on each side of the chest, and maybe one pointing down towards the back on each one of the GMs and on EZ8. But these look cool. I'm gonna probably have to pin these two or figure out some way unless I want them to be fixed, but I was kind of thinking it'd be cool to be able to turn them into different directions, but TBD. These are neat little resin pieces. All right, nothing too sexy here, just Plastistruck. So this is round tubing. So what I want to do with this is I want to put smoke canisters on each of the kits. So the GM would have smoke canisters. I was thinking probably on the shoulders, and then for EZ8, I think I want to put it on the sides of the chest. But I'm going to try this Plastistruck. I wanted to buy Chopper, but I wanted to also keep my budget for this around $100. Admittedly, I busted it by a tiny bit. So I have a miter box, which I'm going to attempt to cut these at an angle and work them, but I also measured these out. These are the same diameter as the barrels on the guns here. So I think scale-wise, everything should line up. I probably could have gone a tick bigger, but I think this will work out fine, and who doesn't like having a bunch of plot plate on hand? All right, last but not least, before I can start building the decals. So these are 1/35th scale tank decals. And let me actually bring this up. So they kind of work. So I'm gonna use that smaller star on the shoulder of the GM here. And yeah, these look great. So I got these from Mega Hobby as well. So I went with the 11th Cavalry Regiment. And you can see these are all Vietnam era stuff. This was $17, so you could either break it up and they wouldn't give you these stars, and you can get it for $11, and then the stars separately are $11, so they have these package deals. But these decals look great. These are made, I think, from Echelon. I went on eBay, and there's a ton of sellers, and you could zoom in on the decals, and they look like crap. I mean, it looked like they just put paint down, and it was bleeding all over the place. So I spent some time to try to figure out who had the better Vietnam decals, and these look dope. I like Quick Draw McGraw. You've got this horse here. They have Assassins. You know, all this kind of rad stuff. El Alien. Yeah, as you can, you know, if you guys are buff-ish, you might know that the Vietnam era could be a little bit cheeky. There's a lot of folks that didn't want to be there, that were there, and maybe they kind of had their fun with branding their vehicles. For the last video, I'm trying to keep this somewhat time specific, right? So for instance, I'm trying to flatten a lot of details here, and same thing too, it's not going to look like your typical Gundam build where there's going to be decals on everything, right? They're just going to be very sparsely put. So I'll be surprised, you know, if I use a dozen decals from this sheet. All right, y'all, that's it for my preliminary build list. I'm happy to report it's been about 2 weeks and I haven't bought anything. And the important point there is trying to kind of set a build and map out your projects. So I thought of everything ahead of time, or at least I think I did, and I purchased it, and I kind of set a budget for myself. And sometimes setting those constraints can be really helpful for us, especially in a creative phase. I know if you kind of leave it up and infinite and open-ended, it can kind of stifle your creativity a little bit. So I personally like working with those constraints, and perhaps you do too. If this is your first time watching my videos, I really appreciate it if you could leave a subscribe. And if you're a longtime creeper, go ahead and hit that subscribe button too. Likes and comments are really rad. There's a lot of good comments that are happening down there, and I really appreciate it if anybody takes a second to leave a little comment and keep the conversation going. I'd also dig it if you checked out my Patreon. If you like these videos, they take some time, they take effort to produce. Life is good, but I also have a little tip jar, so if you want to drop a little nickel in there, you can also pick up t-shirts, you can pick up stickers, and if you're really into it, I also give away some of my smaller builds to my $10 and up supporters. As always, hope whatever you guys are getting after, whether it's modeling, life, work, spouse, significant other, regardless, you're out there and you're making it macho. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.